unpacking today's headlines. This is Souls and Liberty in Depth.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to In Depth, a production of Souls and Liberty, brought to you in partnership with MyPillow.com. The demonic Dems are on the defense. That is for absolutely certain. Hundreds of executive orders, major pro-democracy announcement, communist heads spinning like solar-powered windmills. The destruction of the empire of evil is underway. Or, to revert to the analogy we've been using since before the election, the push off the beaches and launch into enemy territory is finally happening. Trump is beginning the dismantling at a dizzying speed. But the devil always regroups. His nature is to kill and destroy. Jesus Christ told us that. He was a murderer from the beginning. So patience and understanding and wisdom is going to be required here in these opening days, weeks, and months of this administration. This has never been a Dem versus GOP thing. It's been a uniparty deep state versus you thing, versus us thing. And that deep state belongs to Satan because it embraces cultural destruction and child murder. For decades, unelected bureaucrats, communists, and other Marxist-minded or profiteering scalawags have usurped and perverted everything they could for their own personal end, rotting the fabric of the country in the process. They twisted the culture from one with a largely Christian worldview to a religiously indifferent, immoral one. They did this by seizing control of the institutions of the nation and then using that power, as well as social influence, to dress up their antichrist agenda, because that's what it is. It is an antichrist agenda, and presented as, oh, it's somehow Christian, projecting a caring and compassionate thing going on toward the downtrodden and all of that. Social justice became the currency of the communists in the long march through every one of the institutions. Eventually, they achieved such success that they were able to actually capture one of the nation's two political parties during the term of Obama, an anti-American if there ever was one. Over 8 years, Obama began pulling out the supports, ripping them out from under the culture and the nation, preparing for a final communist takeover. Oh, but not so fast, even though he greased the skids for fellow commie Hillary Clinton by quietly replacing the heads of all the intelligence agencies, so they would be ready to assist her with the final toppling of the republic. Remember, when she was running, remember this, she said, religious teachings will have to change. And she was talking about with abortion, and that's a quote. When candidate Trump appeared, Team Obama-Hillary concocted the Russia story, leaked it to the press as though it was real through Jake Sullivan, who's national security director here under Biden. And he's on Hillary's team, and he releases it to the press. Then, when the press reports it, intel heads appointed by Obama used those stories made up that they knew Hillary and Obama had planted, and they knew were total lies and fabrications. They used them to go get a wiretapping warrant from the FISA court to use against Trump. These people demonic. This is diabolical. When he destroyed their plan by actually beating Hillary in 2016, they went underground and disrupted his first term in 1,000 different ways. It's how the deep state works. They prefer it out in the open, like the government censorship and misinformation office, and kicking out active duty military who won't get the vax, but they're also pretty darn good at operating clandestinely. Very good, in fact. Lawfare, assassination attempts, impeachments, J6 circus hearings, harassing Trump supporters and attorneys, media blitzes, nothing was off the table. And that's why Biden had to issue thousands of questionable pardons in his last few minutes in office, because through it all, Trump is back. And unlike the first time, now he knows exactly what needs to be done. That's all fine and good regarding politics, but let's go even bigger picture here, shall we? Many GOP and nearly all Dems are controlled by the demonic because they have allowed it in exchange for power. They sold their souls. And what does hell get out of the deal? The only thing it wants. Souls. Some directly, others through a process of instilling despair in people. Political and cultural leaders are his, but normies become his through the process of a deteriorating culture where through laws and growing social acceptance from the leaders and influencers, normies are gradually turned towards him. A little bit here, a little bit there, and the social consequences of the evil start to pile up. Fatherlessness, rampant, mind-numbing pornography, shattered families, abortion, out-of-wedlock births, addictions born from despair, suicides, hopelessness, all of it. It all takes a devastating toll on a nation. All of these and many more social ills then spill over into the economic and legal arenas as well. And then a vicious cycle gets firmly rooted in place. Leaders create the environment where evil consequences flourish. Then those suffering the consequences turn to the leaders to provide answers. And then the leaders double up on the cultural poison. In the end, a godless, religiously indifferent nation is the product. And no such nation will last very long, because it can't. Trump's victory is the first step in beginning to roll back the empire of evil, but it certainly is not the entire solution. All the executive orders, the new policies, the cabinet appointments, the entire vibe shift is good, and it needs to be celebrated, but it is far from a final victory, very far. Going back to our analogy again, the first troops landing on Normandy were not guaranteed victory. Victory wasn't achieved until the Third Reich surrendered almost a full year later, with bodies of tens of thousands of Americans littered all over Western Europe. God bless them. The effects of the evil visited by communism on American institutions may have begun to run their course, as this resulting vibe shift makes clear. There's a lot of hope out there. Natural virtue, common sense, the law written on each man's heart by Almighty God, all of these things are ascendant. It's still somewhat a fragile situation, but it's better to be winning than playing catch-up. For the moment, the good guys have the initiative. We need to hold on to it and advance it. The worst thing we could possibly do right now is become complacent. And joining me now to talk more about all of this is Stephen Wynn, fellow Souls and Liberty contributor. Stephen, welcome, brother.
Thank you, sir. Good to be here.
Of course it is. Hey, before we had a show all planned out topic-wise and all of that, and we're going to get to that. We're going to scale it back a little bit because of news that is now breaking in media reports. Don't know if it's true or not because it's coming from the New York Times, but it's not entirely new, but there is now serious consideration, apparently, by Donald Trump to end the U.S. federal income tax. Just end it. You're like, whoa, what? I mean, that would be, you didn't even put into words what that would be. I mean, there's sort of two things going here, Stephen. One is, the whole Doge thing and how Trump completely did an end run around them. They filed all these lawsuits, the left, oh, you can't do that. You can't create Doge. Only Congress can create a department, blah, blah, blah. All he did was, move Elon and about 20 people into essentially the executive building, renamed their department a little bit, and then gave them the order. So it isn't a new department like Department of Education or Commerce or Treasury. It has nothing to do with that. It's an office in the executive branch that he's charging with going around and essentially saving $2 trillion in government waste and everything else. So if you cut back the expenses, that's a significant amount of money. On the other hand, reducing the federal income tax also lowers the income. So here you are, deep state, this big giant octopus, control of everything, all of a sudden has some of its food taken away and then some of its tentacles chopped off. That's going to be much less effective, Stephen. And it is a master stroke. If this is true, that the federal income tax will go away. I mean, I got to give it. Trump is coming into D.C. like our blessed Lord walked into the temple and overturned the tables. Everything changed.
Yes, absolutely. I love that analogy. Yes, it's, the mind can't really grasp all of that. It's just I'm dizzy after just a couple of days, but it's awesome. Yeah, the scenario that you lay out, if that is true, what the New York Times is reporting, if they really do run in that direction, that will be, that would likely be augmented even further. Remember, Trump is going to be establishing what he's calling the External Revenue Service, basically a body to oversee and collect tariffs from nations who want to do business with us, pay to play, essentially. And there was, that's largely how we were funded before the introduction of the income tax. And so, rather than
it's actually, just for the record, it's the only constitutional provision for the federal government to actually raise money is through tariffs. That's it, tariffs and fines. But
yeah. So if you're no longer forcing Americans to fork over anywhere from a third to half of their income, and instead, funding yourself by funding the nation and its operations through foreign money, that is just I can't even imagine that. That is so revolutionary. That's an absolute reinvention of the United States of America.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
I think something to bear in mind here is every time there's been an approach by a Republican or Democratic, power block in DC, whether it's Congress or the Senate or the White House, and they keep shifting around one party or another. Well, all they're always doing is just sort of tinkering around with the existing structure. Like if you have a house and, you want like, well, should we build an addition onto the house? Nah, let's just take this room and convert it into that. But at the end of the day, it's still the same house. You might do things a little bit differently, but, there's no major anything. What this is essentially saying we're leaving this house and we're going building a new one. And, we can sell that, get it. Maybe there's some things there that we can bring over. We like Granny's painting. We can put that up on the wall. But, it's going to be a remnant of what things are. If that happens, it's important to remember that, this is the federal income tax. It's one tax that gets taken out of your paycheck. I presume, I haven't heard anything, but I don't think they're going to get rid of the Social Security tax or the FUTA tax or any of that stuff. But that federal income tax takes a bite of somewhere around 15% out of every American's paycheck. Obviously, it's graded. It depends on, if you make more, you pay more money, and you go into a different bracket. But all of that would go away. That's the point. So would H&R Block. I can't imagine that H&R Block is going to be all jumping up and down and all excited about something like this. So would an awful lot of personal tax accountants. So this is the thing when you refashion, rebuild an entire different way of doing business, there's going to be casualties in the old one, and there's going to be greater opportunities in the new one. That's why you would do it. So, of course, what's going to be interesting about this, there's always legal, political, social, but let's talk about political for a moment. If he does this, and I've actually checked with a couple of people whose advice I really, really trust in knowing this stuff. I'm waiting to hear back from them. I still not heard back from them because this news just broke a little bit ago that this is a serious consideration. The question I asked them was, does the president of the United States on his own have the authority to just get rid of the federal income tax? And the tax was imposed by Congress, but does he have the ability to do it? Because here's the thing. The IRS, as opposed to the ERS, the External Revenue Service, the IRS resides under the Department of Treasury, which is a cabinet position administered by the executive branch. There it is. So can he say we are abolishing the tax? I don't know, but I think he can say, pretty darn certain he can say, President Trump can say to the IRS, you guys work for me. I hereby direct you to collect no taxes from anybody's paycheck for at least the next 4 years, federal income taxes for at least the next 4 years. Any money collected will be refunded, blah, 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 and all that and everything else. I think he has that ability. They work at the pleasure of the White House, of the president. So that would be, and of course, now you, from a political standpoint, my goodness, do you have the deep state, mostly Democrats, back on their heels? Can you imagine Chuck Schumer sitting on one of the Sunday morning talk shows going, no, wait, screw the average American. We want to keep these federal incomes. They will never win another election as long as they're alive. Not that Schumer and Nancy have that much longer to live, but that party will die. There is no, first of all, you're taking the funding away from the deep state and you're decentralizing the federal government. And the way the founders envisioned it, that these are different states, when obviously when they set up the Constitution there were 13, now there's 50. But these are 50 different individual states that largely operate as their own kind of mini countries. And they're free to collect income tax or not. State income tax here in Texas, yay, we don't. Florida, we don't. And there's a few other states. Wyoming doesn't. And a lot of people move to these states because of that. It's, you know, depending on how much you make, it's a pretty sizable amount of money you don't have to pay. But if you keep taking funding out of DC and you keep crashing and slashing and burning their waste and reducing the expenses, it starts to shrivel up. And where does the power then go? It goes out to the states. All of a sudden, state governors and the makeup of state legislatures becomes much more on par with what's going on in D.C. So, you know, U.S. Department of Education, we've done a couple of shows on that, just goes away. If a state wants to run its own Department of Education and establish its own standards and things, fine. That's what is supposed to be going on anyway. Yeah, so one of the things I think is important here when you look at sort of this big decentralization thing, this is a big deal. It's, you know, for essentially the 20th century, the whole deep state, you know, grew and just kept inserting itself and into the whole power structure. And it looked like this was just it forever. Moving here into the 21st century, Trump is sort of taking the country and the way it operates back to the 19th century. This is astounding. It really is. Talk about being unburdened by the past, Stephen.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah, this will unleash America like we've never seen before.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember, just because we get on to our other topic here, but I think it's important to remember that when that federal income tax was first introduced, and it was essentially to fund World War I, parts of money going to World War I and all that. And then just, of course, it was a temporary tax. Well, he's going to make it a temporary tax. So far, it's been a permanent tax. But when that happened, America was, a relatively prosperous country. You'd say probably moderately prosperous. Certainly, the European powers were more powerful and prosperous than we were prior to World War I. But now, eliminating that, reorienting the way America does business across the board with an already now established economic might and muscle that we have. I mean, talk about American prosperity. I mean, you wonder, is Trump like laying in bed for the last 4 years at night, like doodling and taking notes and saying, if I get rid of the income tax.
Absolutely. I honestly, I think he has just literally spent the past 4 years thinking about how he can reinvent the country and just laying it all out. It's just extraordinary.
Yeah. And of course, to reinvent the country, you need to eliminate the deep state. And he has two dogs in that fight. He's a patriot and he's pissed.
Yeah,
because of how they came after him. So, either dog pulls that sled. Hey, put them both up. 2-dog night. Excellent. All right, Stephen, I think one of the things that we want to talk about also moving forward here is, and we'll be keeping a very close eye on that. Is the federal income tax going to be eliminated, not collected, whatever the word is? But as Trump moves into gets into high gear, but I think he's already in high gear. I think he hit high gear the second he took his hand down and said, okay, here's my speech. Various polls are showing that he and his agenda, or some, coming together of that, is extremely popular. I mean, here's a poll from CBS News showing, that 60% to 40% of Americans approve of Donald Trump and his agenda. I mean, that's outstanding, astounding. And you go down, you look at every demographic. I mean, tell us more about this real quickly.
Yeah, it's remarkable. Of course, that 40%, that reflects, the those with Trump derangement syndrome, the never Trumpers and so forth, those who still maintain that Biden was doing a good job at the helm. And so, despite the economic reality around us, they refuse to budge. But honestly, even I think a healthy chunk of that that demographic, if Trump gets rid of the federal income tax, that's got to sway some of those people. I think basically, if he produces results, the results that we're hoping and praying for, that as you said earlier, it's going to spark a political shift that will last for a generation or generations. It's just
I think multiple generations. How do you campaign as a Democrat?
Right.
Just on the question of the income tax, you stand up there and say, "We want to tax you." That doesn't play well, and particularly once people kind of get used to it, and industry begins building itself around this concept and everything. To come in and say, "No, that was then. This is now. We're going to go back to the old way it was." This is the old way it was, and people don't like it. That's why Trump is now sitting in the Oval Office. So I don't know how you campaign against that, honestly. Just from pure politics, what do you go out and say in your campaign ads when you go stand in front of the VFW back in your local congressional district? What do you say? And when somebody stands up and says, "Hey, Trump did a good job, Mr. Democrat Congressman, with getting rid of the federal income tax, didn't he? Hey, I've got more money in my pocket now. Isn't that a good thing?" What's your answer as a Democratic congressman? It's crazy. But, those are economic issues and stuff. And again, we don't know, but that's, I can't imagine that talk is out there and something's not going to happen. That's just not the way Trump seems to work. But if you got to attack the deep state in order to refashion America. You've got to attack it and if not destroy it, reduce it to a worm level. That also includes all the various offices and departments and everything. And, well, Catholic Marco Rubio took the oath of office, earlier this week as the new Secretary of State. And the very first thing he did was fire 20 top officials at state. I mean, just got rid of them. Thanks for your service, guys. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. He's quite the story, really. He was confirmed 99 to nothing. Unanimous. The zero, and the reason it wasn't 100 is because one of the senators wasn't seated yet from the switchover. He's a pretty solid Catholic.
He is, absolutely, yeah. In fact, we've seen him make a number of public statements over the past several days attesting to such. We know that he's practicing in during his opening address during his confirmation hearings last week. He attested to the role that God, the role that his faith has played in his life, and he spoke to how it will be a real guiding force for him if he were to be confirmed, and of course he was. And then upon his confirmation, rather, he publicly proclaimed, giving glory to Almighty God and our Lord Jesus Christ. But we've got a clip of him talking about this in his Senate confirmation hearings. Let's take a listen to this. Again, this outlines the role that his faith will play in his position moving forward.
I also want to acknowledge all the blessings that God has bestowed upon me in my life. My faith is critical and something I will lean and rely on heavily in the months that are ahead. In a tumultuous world where, in my faith, we are called to promote the cause of peace and the common good. And that task has gotten harder than it's ever been. And I will rely heavily on my faith and pray for God's blessings, that He will provide me the strength, the wisdom, and the courage to do what is right in these tenuous moments.
So there we see the role that... Oh, yeah, exactly. There we see the role that faith is going to play. Rubio spoke to the fact that Catholicism teaches that we need to act on behalf of the common good, to promote the common good. And it's very clear that for 35 years, basically since the end of the Cold War, when we truly embraced all of our governmental institutions, fully embraced the globalist ideology,
Yep.
that has not been a movement for the public good. It has decimated this country, and I've spoken to this point a couple of times before in the past week. But the Rubio's statement in his confirmation hearings, basically, he outlined Trump's foreign policy plan, and I think it flew under the radar because he was his hearings were much more placid than Pete Hegseth's, for example. But it was absolutely revolutionary what he outlined. Complete a 180-degree turn from the policies that we have been pursuing for the better part of a generation, the past 35 years.
Oh, really? Yeah, really? It's like 2 generations. I mean, it goes back to Clinton. I mean, the Bill Clinton administration, and even further back than that. I mean, it started to take hard form, concrete form under Clinton's. They had 2 terms to really sort of bring it to fruition.
Right.
And of course, when George Bush came to power, won the presidency, he was in agreement with that. So,
very much so. Oh, yeah, that was the first time I remember hearing the phrase "the New World Order." He was constantly promoting that. Of course, that's been, that's taken on a life of its own. But that's really what it was. It was just another term for globalism, and they have been pursuing that since the early 1990s.
And speaking of globalism and the New World Order,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's interesting. The World Economic Forum is underway. It got underway on Tuesday in Davos, Switzerland, and it's fascinating what's coming out of there. We've got a couple of clips that we want to play. The first is from a WEF panel where they're very open. They basically concede that Trump won and we lost, and we've got to brace ourselves for what's coming. Let's take a listen.
Trump has done something no person in the world has ever done before. A dead man, a dead politician, has risen. Somebody who if we were 4 years ago at Davos, he's buried, dead politically, known to me. He's now returned. This is the greatest comeback in political history of a politician. And then, therefore, he thinks he can do anything.
We need to also factor in not only who's won, which is Trump, but who's lost, which is to say us. And I guess I would throw into that the epitome of the us who is losing here is Europe. That the European Union and by and large its member states have misread the direction where events were going. The causes that it is interested in, climate, human rights, some others, as well as the methods of diplomacy that it prefers, are simply being gradually kind of marginalized as something new, not necessarily something better, but something new moves into the center.
What's interesting about that, Stephen, what strikes me is the fact that the speaker there at the end casts it as Trump/America won and we lost. That's a big deal. It's not just the truth of what he's saying. It's that's very revealing of their mindset. America must be defeated, and Trump/MAGA/America won, which means we lost. Right. I mean,
yeah, exactly. It's
not the World Economic Forum; it's the Global Forum minus America.
Right. And I also love the fact that he specifically mentioned Europe, the European Union, as having, Trump's victory means a giant loss for them. The EU is the ultimate globalist project, perhaps other than the United Nations. And, they concede that Trump's victory is a win, a massive win for national sovereignty and a giant loss for globalism there.
And Klaus
and then
Schwab, of
to,
course, isn't very happy about this at all either.
No, he is
Aw.
not. He is not.
Poor little Klausy.
Exactly. Now he was not as direct or as open as the Davos panel there, but what he said was really equally revealing. We'll peer into that. We've got a clip from him. Let's take a listen.
We risk depending into self-serving and short-sighted behaviors that undermine collective progress and lead to profound societal and political shifts. To counter the erosion of hope and confidence in our future, we must go beyond reacting just to crisis. We must focus proactively, shaping the future in strategic, innovative, and constructive ways, despite the intense, short-term pressures and problems which we all feel. It is not cynicism or negativism which brings us forward, but practical steps to address the real-world challenges, what we want to do here during this meeting.
All right, so he said, we risk descending into self-serving and short-sighted behaviors that undermine collective progress and lead to profound societal and political shifts. Yeah. So, decoding the jargon, Schwab is voicing fear, real fear, that Trump's win is going to decouple the United States from the great globalist project. It's going to weaken the grasp of socialism upon the world, and it's going to lead to a real return of sovereignty-mindedness. And
Gulf of America, buddy. Gulf of America.
Right, exactly. And I tell you what, Trump is scheduled to address the World Economic Forum later today. It is going to be very interesting to see what flows from that.
I mean, we were joking before coming on air that I don't know. That address could be probably summed up from Trump to them in 2 words. We'll leave that to imagination.
And not we're fired. Yes, exactly.
So again, what we were talking about earlier, that it's the dismantling of the deep state. I mean, all these things are kind of intertwined. It's a big ball of yarn. You got to undo it. But what's the big ball of yarn? It's global control by a few elites of everything. So you have to get, they think of Europe as a country, European Union. I mean, it's obviously not, but they think of it as one unit, America as a unit, and they pretty much had America. Not in the rank and file, not in the hearts and minds of various, U.S. citizens, obviously, who just propelled Trump back into office. But certainly with all of the, the tech, the huge number of billionaires that were backing the Dems and everything else, who many of whom are now like, oh crap, I don't want to be betting on the wrong horse. But all of that was able to be engineered because America, as we've talked about these last few, sound bites and things, had drifted into or been engineered into a deep state where everything is controlled and everything from the inside, and sucking Americans, regular normie Americans, dry of everything, income, faith, hope, everything. And that Trump comes along and says, nope, that's not happening. And every single thing. I mean, we're getting word that the JFK files are about to be released. What? It's not the question of that he would do any of this, eliminate the federal income tax, release the JFK files, release it. I mean, he's been saying he's got to do this, but it's the speed at which he's doing it. And you're blindsided, absolutely blindsided. He caught the lawyers in the whole Doge thing completely off guard. He is playing like 6-layer chess, and these guys are back there trying to figure out how you crown a king on some little flimsy checkers board. And the whole J6 thing. Speaker Johnson just said that he, as the speaker, like Nancy Pelosi did when she was the speaker, we're going to make a J6 commission and find out what happened. and then, stack it with people and it's all BS, and, the outcome was all lies and rigs and Liz Cheney on Benny Johnson, et cetera, destroying all the evidence. Now Speaker Johnson says, yep, you know what? I'm going to form a J6 committee, and we are going to get to the bottom of what happened. Man, I mean, you could not strip the deep state of any more credibility going after J6. There's an enormous push right now in very conservative, well thought out political circles, ready to do a document dump proving that 2020 was stolen. I mean, they are reversing everything. It's like a reverse hurricane. It's stunning. But I mean, you've got one of the guys who got pardoned, Jake Lang, and it's quite the story, and he has quite the assessment on what's going on right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yes. He was released just yesterday, I believe, or the day before, late the day before, and Jake Lang is a very solid Christian young man. He it's just unbelievable. He was held in the jail in Washington, D.C. They term it the D.C. Gulag for more than 4 years without ever being charged. Without charge. He was held in prison, essentially, for 4 years and enduring all kinds of abuses and whatnot. And he's spoken to a lot of that. He's been very active on social media in getting the word out to independent media. And so he's become really pretty prominent, a prominent spokesperson, if you will, for the J6ers. And we've got a clip of his release, and it's fantastic. It really is. I tell you, this guy, no kidding, he has got a career either in media, in politics, maybe even theology. I don't know, but he's a very solid Christian. You'll see him. He's clutching a Bible as he's exiting the jail there.
America's first Catholic priest president. How's that? Does that work?
Well, he's evangelical, but we'll work on that.
He'll convert.
But really, he's stirring, and what was so awesome about his words, he came out not bitter whatsoever. He came out excited, fired up, just obviously happy, elated to be free, but very proud to be an American and incredibly grateful to the role that President Trump played. He describes Trump basically as God sent. But let's take a listen to what he had to say.
We are witnessing an indelible moment in American history where freedom is finally able to reign again, where we don't have to be sad about and hiding in corners for exercising our rights, where we're no longer being censored on social media left and right, where there are two genders again, where men are not 1 mile away from the United States Capitol, lying in solitary confinement for 900 days. American people are relieved. This institutional nightmare, this weaponization, these institutions that have crumbled are now being restored. Faith and trust and hope are back in America. We are back, baby. We are back, baby. What is your message? What is
USA? USA! 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 USA!
What is your message to the half of America that still regards January the 6th as a dangerous assault on democracy? Listen, guys, it's a republic, first of all, and we have rights not to be assaulted on the grounds of our own capital. We stood up against a stolen election. We will be vindicated in the pages of history as patriots and freedom fighters, as peaceful men and women that were first attacked and then defended. And we did not run when it would have been easy to run. We stood on our grounds of the people's house and stood for something that meant something so much in history. It will be remembered when the free men stood up against tyranny. It is no longer the age where we have to hide in America. We are back, the patriots. We don't have to crawl in the back corners of Facebook and Instagram being censored. We've got X, we've got Trump, we've got Musk, we've got the dream team. We're back. We are so free. 4 years, 5 days of torture. But like I said, the American people have reclaimed this country through this media right here. because we don't no longer have gatekeepers. The suffering we did in the gulag, my brother Peter Sager right here and I, 2 years in the gulag with me, shoulder to shoulder, and then another year in the federal BOP being tortured. Right here, Ronnie Sandlin, another American patriot and hero, 2 years in the gulag being tortured. Our stories would have been left into the back pages of history if it wasn't for this First Amendment right that we fought for at the Capitol, that we stood for at the Capitol. And it's you guys out there that have blessed us with voices from the bottom of a prison cell, from 900 days of solitary confinement, cockroaches scurrying around our feet, rats and mice and all kinds of disgusting cretins that they have in the DC gulag. You guys gave us a voice when Fox News and CNN and MSNBC and the Washington Post, all these garbage outlets turned our back on us. You guys gave us a voice, and we appreciate you guys that have stood by our side so much. Every single one of you guys, the supporters, the community organizers, the people at the vigil, our family members, my mom, my father, whoever he's at, that hero. We are really a community that has been formed by broken people. And that's truly where a community can come together most, because those who suffer together, those who bleed together, can truly celebrate together, can truly know what it's like to lose and what it's like to win. We've lost for too long. It's time to win again, America. It's aggressive.
Jake, what message you want to send to President Trump?
Oh, President Trump, I told him again, President Trump, right here, you're a man that this book right here has inspired to move a mountain for us. It is like a modern day biblical story that has been written. The Red Sea literally parted. The Red Sea literally parted. We had 0% chance in that DC courtroom. We were being slaughtered. We were being lied against. And President Trump parted a Red Sea by the grace of God. He was sent for all of us here. Our families, the broken families of Jan Sixers, are witnessing a biblical miracle by the power of faith, can still move mountains. Prayers work, people. Keep praying. Keep praying. It was prayer that got me free. It was Jesus Christ who used President Trump. He saved us.
Yeah, again, he's right. I mean, if
very,
Trump,
very stirring.
It was. I just loved it. Really, this guy, he is a leader, a young leader. He's someone to keep your eyes on, basically. And he's right. If Trump had not come into power, he would be languishing in prison for 10 years or more, and all of them, would have been. It's been such a travesty, just a campaign of pure wickedness, absolute wickedness. And it just attests, you said this in the opening of the show, the deep state really is a manifestation, a vehicle for Satan himself. And
Absolutely.
you just see that played out in everything they touch.
Of course, look, Satan wants the destruction of every human being. And, not because he gets any joy out of it, because it's just his nature. I mean, does rain get joy while it's falling to earth? No, it's just its nature to fall to earth. Same thing with, Satan. He doesn't get joy out of souls, but he, this just is what he does. As I said in some, opening comments, like our Lord said, he was a liar and a murderer from the beginning. It's what he does. Not because he gets joy out of it, because it's what he does. Wind blows. That's no joy in the wind. But I do think that there is when you look at how the satanic needs to operate, it will operate on every front that it can. Individuals, groups or families, groups, larger groups, political bodies, politics, all of it. I mean,
an
really?
Entire nation.
Really? The demonic is going to say, oh, we're not going to get involved in politics. Let's go over here and try to get this guy in the drug alley, like shooting heroin or something, and get him to kill himself.
Exactly.
It's just ridiculous. What front would they abandon and say, nope, we're just not going to do that? It's crazy. And when you think about the power involved in politics, which is why the left is completely losing their minds right now, because they see their power being taken away from them, and then they're about to be clubbed over the head with it. Trump signed an executive order, restating that the death penalty is to be administered in cases of treason. I got to tell you, if you're in that crowd, that participated in any of this stuff, wow, you have got to be wetting your pants right now.
Exactly.
Even if you don't, even if you go to trial and you don't get found guilty of treason, is the jury allowed to return a lesser charge against you? How much did you have to bankrupt yourself to pay for your attorneys to save your life from a firing squad? These are real questions, and it's about damn time, honestly. It's about damn time that the left that has rained down terror on, normal everyday Americans, fear, terror, imprisonment, charges, threats, throwing pro-lifers in prison for praying in front of abortion chambers, the whole bit. I mean, it's about time they paid for this, and they will get no sympathy. Look at sympathy for the fact, well, we wish you hadn't chosen that way, but now that you have, this is our response. Kind of like the last day.
Right. Yeah, I think you've hit upon a key point. I want to underscore that. Satan through the deep state is active, not just at the individual level, not just at the political level, but also the national level. He wants to capture entire nations.
Sure.
All right. That is why there is such a war, a spiritual war, beneath the political struggle that's going on right now. It is fundamentally a spiritual war. And I think Satan is going to fight harder in this particular battle, in our particular country, than anywhere across the world. Why?
He's a wounded
because
animal.
The United States is the greatest power, military, economic, cultural, in every way. We are the greatest power in the country. And so if he can capture us, which he has, really, I mean, by and large, especially over the past 4 years, he can use us to transmit his diabolical virus to conquer nations around the world. I mean, you look at, he's entrenched everywhere in this country, but especially in some of our great cities, New York, Washington, San Francisco, Los Angeles. He's particularly entrenched in those cities. Well, personally, I think it's because those are our financial, political, tech, and entertainment capitals. And he uses what is the incredible content, material, influence that is transmitted from those cities, and again, from America as a whole, to basically advance his kingdom upon earth. And so,
what's interesting, if I can put this into like that little chess analogy I mentioned earlier in the show.
Yeah.
Trump winning, kind of, and doing what's going on right now, kind of, it's like Trump has captured the devil's queen on the chessboard.
Yeah.
He has got to be freaking out. He's got to be freaking out. He has plans, but so does God. And
yes,
the difference is that God knows his plans, but he doesn't know God's plans. That's why you really don't sort of do war with God. He's always got like the upper hand, usually his right one.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And I just want to stress, because of the spiritual nature of what's going on, this war, and our viewers are going to be hearing a lot of this from us moving forward, reminders that we have got to be praying for President Trump, Vice President Vance, the entire team, their entire agenda, because, no matter, Trump is the strongest president at least since Lincoln, maybe since Washington. However, he's no match. He himself is no match for Satan. Without adequate prayer covering and support, spiritual support from believers in this country, it's a long shot for his agenda to succeed in the long term. Sure. We have got to be praying every bit as much, if not more, and I would argue more, because things are really ramping up now than we were in the lead up to the election. It really is a life and death struggle for the temporal existence of this nation, but also the spiritual destiny of its people.
Yeah, very well said. I think it's. And so people kind of don't get the impression that, well, does that mean I should say like 4 more rosaries a day? Well, I mean, sure. However you want to ramp up your private individual prayer life, devotional life, with a new or more of a focus on all of these things, the good of the nation, the ultimately because of the salvation of souls. You don't want the nation to fall into diabolical hands where, any more than it already has, and now you want to try to wrest it away from it for souls. You can pray more, as in spend more minutes a day praying, You can also pray more intently. You can still pray the same amount of prayer, but if you're focusing your mental, your spiritual energies on, what am I praying for? Ultimately, I'm praying for the salvation of souls, and that Satan's plans to corrupt and use America are thwarted, by Trump and Trump, appointees and, cabinet and all that stuff, all the political stuff, that, Blessed Mother, you put your mantle around this. Ultimately, we're Americans, but ultimately we're your children. So, protect us from Satan. And in the world of both spiritual and temporal, the spiritual war, as you so wonderfully laid out there, gets played out in the temporal. We're not angels. We don't just fight, with, telepathy. We have bodies. We have real world things. We're in a world of matter and material, and, people are put in prison and babies are chopped up to pieces in the wombs. All this stuff happens in the material world. So the material world must be battened down, but it's done through spiritual force. So if you're thinking along these lines when you're praying, want to pray more, as in more minutes a day, go for it. But whether you're going to just ramp up the intensity of your existing prayers, if you have a good devotional life right now, or you're going to dedicate more time, physical minutes on a clock, or you're going to combine both of those, however you're going to do it, because everybody has different circumstances in their lives, do it.
Yes, exactly. And the political revolution has to be undergirded by really a spiritual revolution in each and every one of us who are believers currently. Because again, we've talked about this many times in the past several months. There really is there's a discernible spiritual hunger among Americans, especially young Americans today. And we're seeing signs of that everywhere. And I'm, over the past year have started to hear, for the first time that I can remember, just a series of very good news stories popping up that show that, as the darkness is getting darker, because it is, there are new lights shining up in the midst of it, and they're shining all the brighter. And so there's a lot that we can do to advance God's kingdom, by just our own private devotions, our private prayer time, communing with Him, and yes, we've got to pray like our future depends on it, because it does, both here in this physical life and in eternity.
Absolutely. Stephen, give us some closing thoughts right here, and then we'll say goodbye to the audience for the moment. But this is a lot of stuff to digest.
It is, and that's I'm glad you said that. That was going to be my closing thought. I have never seen anything like this. None of us have. I was last night. I was trying to plan for today's show, and so I was reviewing stories, and I just couldn't keep up. It is unlike anything I've ever seen. One of the stories that popped up was, Trump has ordered all, the LGBT flags to be taken down from all government facilities here and abroad. I mean, my reaction was, oh, okay, moving on, because it has been nonstop. Yeah. I mean, before 4 days ago, that alone would have been a story that we could have built an entire in-depth episode around. Sure. That one story. And there are literally dozens flooding out of DC these days. I'm loving it. I'm trying to keep up with this 78-year-old man who's gotten me beat, almost twice my age.
On that point, let me throw in a little thing here. Hopefully we can find it and put it in. But so Monday obviously was Inauguration Day, and Tuesday, they had all the inaugural balls and this and that and everything else. And I think Trump got back to the White House. I think I saw the report at like 12:30 at night. I think that's when it was. But whatever, he wasn't back. He wasn't in his bed at 7 o'clock at night on Inauguration night. somebody took a picture from somewhere, one of those sort of stationary network cameras that's always looking at the White House. And the timestamp on it was 6:02 a.m. This is the day after the inauguration, Tuesday, the 21st. 6:02 a.m. There's the lights on in the Oval Office. I was like, what? That's shocking. I mean, does he have like a little, remember those little fridges we used to have in college, like, little beer fridges in your dorm room? Does he have one of those like under the desk, under his desk in the Oval Office full of Diet Coke? I don't know how you keep up with that. Everybody has said, every single person who works around him has said, this guy, you can't keep up with him. He's just here, there, that. He's, this, that, this thought, boom, boom, boom. He's impossible to keep up with. And I've got to imagine that. He tweeted something out at 4:30. Was that? No, it was 12:30 the other night after that crazy woman bishop who's not a bishop lectured him and J.D. Vance there in the National Cathedral. After that happened, he sent out a tweet at 12:30 in the morning. Essentially how much she sucks and it was embarrassing and, who could even listen to any of that stuff or anything else. I'm like, yes, the age of mean tweets is back. 12:30 in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, there he is in the Oval Office, hard at work. The stamina the guy has to, born out of probably a dual motive, love of America. And he can say all he wants that this isn't vengeance, but, my foot, he is going to suffocate those people who did that to him and his family. And quite frankly, because what did he say back in 2016? It's not me they want, it's you. They just got to go through me to get to you. He has a real sense of justice and fairness. God bless him for it. Steve, we're going to wrap up there just because we're out of time and all of that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm terrified to check my phone and find out what just happened. It's so fast. Everything's so fast and so multiple. But anyway, brother, thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. That wraps us up for today here on In Depth, Souls and Liberty, coming to you from Houston, Texas. Yeehaw! Where the snow is finally melting. Wahoo. I'm Gary Michael Voris. God love you.